Blessing, good afternoon, each and everyone. Welcome to Facts, Not Fiction. Let me welcome our viewers locally, regionally, internationally. Well, a little breaking news today. Apart from the several school fights that occur, and one right in front of the the supermarket in Palo Seco. That fight, actually, sorry I didn't send it to you because somebody sent it to me a while ago. But I'll show you how some of our elderly or mature, or I should take back that word, some people who are supposed to be responsible are sorry I didn't clip that earlier to send it for you, so that you will see actually how our citizens in this country, something wrong with them. Because actually two schoolgirls gears up to fight. The security from the store came out and trying to quell the situation. You believe some little idiot come from behind the crowd and push one of the schoolgirls onto the next girl, and you know that was the end of the story there? I just tell you how people who ought to be responsible, how their brain gone in society, that it seems as though that the society gets so accustomed with blood and bloodshed and murder and killing and fighting, and so like they just want to see, and everybody had a phone. So he just come from through the crowd with his bag like he went in the grocery, and he just come and push one of the girl onto the next girl. I just hope that the police lock him up. I hope the police should be just looking for that individual right now, because his face is on the camera. The police should just be looking for that individual and lock him up, because when he pushed the girl onto the other girl, well, everything break loose there. It's fight who could have lost their eye, because we're talking about total madness. They end up on the ground. What this country coming to? What this country really coming to? I just thought I should mention that, but sorry, I just get the video while I was on my way up, so I didn't have time to send it. But we have a little breaking news also, and that is in relation to Caridoc workers. It says, breaking news, close to 100 Caridoc workers have been sent home with immediate effect today. The employees, news media understand, were called to a meeting at UTT's Chaguanas campus a short while ago, where the announcement was made. Now, this happened somewhere around 2:30, somewhere thereby. The company's full name is Caribbean Dockyard and Engineering Service Limited, and was recently removed from the Ministry of Finance and placed under the Ministry of Works and Transport. According to Mr. Mahabia, a senior official at the company, the affected employees would be on a temporary furlough for 3 months, but he is unclear as to what would be the case afterwards. So, in other words, they would be absent without leave, so to speak, for this 3 months, but he don't know what will be their future after that. He promised that the company will continue to communicate with its furloughed employees on their employment status. The affected employees received their temporary termination letter after the meeting. So, again, while the Prime Minister get his degree and so on for doing a good job and creating employment and what have you, it seems as though that the real facts and the evidence will suggest otherwise. Now, I am not going to make the Prime Minister, Keith Rowley, doctorate a topic, because as far as I'm concerned, that is not a topic. For me, that is. As far as I'm concerned, that is window dressing, as far as I'm concerned. So you're dressing the man up in a particular way to make him look good for the election that would be coming, whether in 2025 or before. So that is not an issue. And I often wonder why people are so distracted in this country. I often wondered why people are so distracted in this country by things that, as far as I concerned, by trivial things. Rowley, some man called Rowley to give him a doctorate. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Some man called Rowley to give him a doctorate. What is wrong with that? All right? I ain't see nothing wrong with that. He got a doctorate, he got a doctorate. But the whole country tend to move away from and lost focus of the real issues that continues to affect your everyday life, your well-being, your safety, your security, your employment, your bad infrastructures. I mean, things that totally collapsing in the country. And every time Rowley make a statement, or every time somebody make some gift to Rowley, the whole country tend to fall apart and run with that.
What once used to be millions of dollars of your taxpayers' money. Senator Anna Roberts asked me what this was that the government was building here today. I told him building. I told him the government is not building. The government is crashing a structure into the ocean bed. Right here used to be the Caridoc, what we call the Caridoc, owned by the CL Financial Group. The government spent tens of millions of dollars of your taxpayers' money to purchase this. This was a massive structure you would have seen here before, of metal rising up to the sky. And inside of there, you would have seen large ships, oil tankers, even those boats that sail in between Trinidad and Tobago, that take our citizens to and from, would come here to be repaired. Many ships from Guyana, Suriname, and other areas of the region would dock here and dry dock here to get repairs and bring in millions of dollars of foreign currency, of scarce foreign currency, much needed. This used to be a big income earner. But after 2 years of government management, tens of billions of your dollars was crushed into the ground by poor maintenance by this P&M government. The poor maintenance caused this entire structure to sink into the bed, into the ocean bed. And there is no possible way of retrieving it or repairing it at this point in time. So your taxpayers have gone up in smoke.
Well, that is just another attachment to the long list of mismanagement, misappropriation of funds by the government. And I mean, we are so distracted that when Rowley make any statement, country run with that statement. Rowley get a doctorate, everybody running on this doctorate with Rowley and Rowley. And we are so sidetracked from the main issue. We have things like Nelson Gate. We had things like the apartments in Tobago. We have things where, I mean, we have a long list. Alan Karim had sent me a list. A long list with all the ills from hush money, come right back up the ladder. And everybody is interested in making a topic out of some doctorate that some man give Rowley as a gift. That is Rowley business. That is the man business. Our business is to hold the government account for what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Our business is to find out who government officials was involved in this whole fiasco, and I call it the Bajan fiasco, where a man was taken against his will. A plane left Trinidad and Tobago by whose authority, get clearance to leave, landed in Barbados, pick up a man, bring him back here. I mean, we have so many burning issues to deal with, but everybody wants to deal with Rowley and a doctorate. I am lost. I am really, really lost, because what is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? Rowley doctorate is not important to you. That is not important to you. Rowley doctorate would not fix the problems of Trinidad and Tobago. Rowley's doctorate would not solve the crime situation. Rowley's doctorate will not make you safe in your homes. Rowley doctorate will not make us win an election. Rowley doctorate, ladies and gentlemen, that's a matter for him and the gentleman who believes that Rowley deserves it. That's their business. But we taking that and we making a national issue, while we have so many national issues to deal with in this country. So many national issues to deal with in this country on a daily basis. But everybody going doctorate mad. Everybody going doctorate crazy. Well, boy, I really don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. People have to understand in this country, ladies and gentlemen, that there are things that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed now. We have to understand the situation that we are in from a holistic standpoint. We are in a domestic situation that affects the nature and the country from an international standpoint. The domestic problem that continues to interfere with us nationally, it is where we don't trust the government. There is no credibility in the government. There is no credibility in the judiciary and the ongoing crime situation that the government continues to benefit from. And when people understand that, they will understand, look the list there, corruption allegation against the Rowley administration from 2015 to 2022. I told you that Alan Karim had sent a list, and it deals with from the painting, from $3 million in painting, Soka on the CCL financial sex harassment, Trump phone call 60 million, Toruba Stadium, toilet paper factory, trade union hush money, Shamfra Roman bill, Darrell's Tobago weekend, Massey Communication millions, fake oil, Kobo Star, Ocean Flower. The list goes on and on and on and on. It don't even have enough space, according to Archie, to show everything. You understand? But we studying Rowley and he degree. That's what we studying. We have a whole list here to deal with. A whole list here to get into the public minds and to get into the public view and to get into the public hearing of all these allegations. And these is not just allegations, These is things that actually happen under Keith Rowley government. These is things that happened, that took place. This is not just an allegation to say, well, somebody trump up something, The only Trump up thing there is Trump phone call, and the Trump is just his name. You understand? So many things to deal with. And it seems like Rowley just have people in this country running like headless chicken. Just had them running wild. We have a situation in this country, domestic situations that affect us internationally. And let me deal with the first one. The first problem that we have from a national standpoint is the people, the foreigners, do not trust this government. When foreign countries do not trust your country and your administrators and your leaders, what you find would take place immediately is that there will be no foreign direct investments coming to your country. Nobody will want to invest in your country. And when your country is starved for direct foreign investments, what happens is that it plays a significant part on your economy. And what happens when it plays a significant part on your economy? The result will trickle down domestically. It will trickle down from the smallest man coming up. You will feel the pressure, because when you're here, you have a government that cannot be trusted like the PNM government. Foreigners refuse to invest. We have a situation that the government is not really interested in exploration. While they tell you, while they fabricate to you, they're really not interested in that field anymore, because they had their head and their hopes up that something was going to take place within that Dragon Field deal that all of them boast about just the other day when Biden gave them a little clearance. Everybody boasts. Some of them cost the UNC and all. You hear what I'm telling you? Some of them lawyers cost the UNC and all. But the government set apart, they place a footprint, and that footprint that they placed in the sand was heading directly to Venezuela, and to utilize the resources from Venezuela as the trade partner to balance the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. However, that did not work out. When that did not work out, ladies and gentlemen, the whole plan with Christopher Rowley and shutting down Petrotrin and closing the refinery, when he told you that Trinidad and Tobago, the government was going to get out of the refining business. So remember that statement? It was Rowley who told you folks that they wasn't closing down Petrotrin. They're just going to get out of the refining business. So they had a holistic plan. Remember, we had discussion going on between Rowley and Stuart Young. They had made several visits to Venezuela. They had discussions going on behind the scene. At one point in time, there was some discussions where the Russian counterparts, Russian energy company, had a symposium with Trinidad and Tobago in foreign countries, and they had all that I had brought to you time and time ago. I had brought to you the date, the country that they met in. I showed you the people who were there. At that time, the Minister of Energy was not even present. You know who was present? The National Security Minister was Rowley Bulldog at that time. That was like the National Security Minister was Rowley toilet paper. That is what it was, Rowley toilet paper. So we had all these things happening. In the preparation and the decision making to close Petrotrin, all these dialogue, these discussions were taking place on an international scale. Talks were taking place directly with Venezuela. We had Delcy Rodriguez and the PDVSA team came in. We had Astrobal Chavez and all of those who was the former chairman of the PDVSA oil company. We had things happening. It had negotiation was going on. And when these negotiations was completed, then the government took stringent measures and mashed up Petrotrin. By doing so, they really did not had any exploration plans in place. So while they were telling you something, as usual, the government will tell you something and they will do something else. That is a strategic plan of this Keith Rowley administration. They will always tell you something and do something else. I mean, we had the discussion a couple weeks ago where Rowley said that he was going Barbados to meet some old friends and to play golf on one of the best golf courses in the world. While I took that and I took the leverage of that to beat Keith Christopher Rowley, in my mind, I deal with what he said. But in my mind, and if it's not in your mind, that trip was more than meeting some old friends and playing golf, then something wrong with you. If you, the citizens of this country, didn't place in your mind that trip that Rowley tell you that he going to meet some old friends and play golf, if you believe that was only that, then something wrong with you. Because we have seen time and time again, ladies and gentlemen, that Rowley will say one thing and do something different. Rowley tell you, I am speaking, let me speak to the mothers. He didn't want to talk to the fathers. He didn't want to even talk to the children. He said, let me speak to the mothers. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is not closing down Petrotrin. And let me repeat that. In case you was closing your fridge door or whatever clownish kind of talk he liked to talk, he repeated to you, and 2 weeks later, Petrotrin was history. So if you believe that trip to Barbados was only about meeting some friends and playing some golf, then something wrong with you. Drastically wrong with you. I don't know if Rowley does sell sheep meat in Barbados. I don't know. I don't know if goat and sheep meat does go through Barbados, if that is where it does export, and I don't know. I just asking. I don't know. I don't know if this whole Brent issue was some of the friends that Rowley going to meet in Barbados. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's a blanket or a sheet. I don't know if it's a mat or vinyl. I don't know if some kind of cover up and what it will cover with was going to take place. I don't know. I really don't know. But what I do know is if you believe that trip was just about friends and golf, then something wrong with you. So I'm coming back to my point where I am saying that the domestic problems that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, it is affecting us internationally. And when it affects you internationally, one of the things that we saw the US speaks of just recently was human trafficking. And we had a whole set of halabubu we had with that US human trafficking document. We had a whole, is it you? Is it me? Is it you? Is it me? Is it me?
That's a perfect example of what you started the show by talking about. That when Rowley wanted to deflect from something, he throws some stupidness in. And boy,
everybody gone.
UNC people especially, man, they gone off on that.
Everybody gone. So we had big topic. It's not you, me, it's you. You is the government, me is not the government. I is not the government, you is the government, and bacchanal. Until the US say, hey, when we say government, we mean everybody who sit inside it. That come and kill that whole topic. That topic just gone under the carpet for now. But mind you, I am here to tell you that topic will surface for election. Rest assured, that topic going to surface for election. Mark that down. I want to mark that down. Eh? Don't forget. That topic going to come like a bomb for election. And when we have the foreigners not trusting a government, you in for a lot of problems. So we had the US speak on that. We also had the US telling us that they are looking into the plane that landed in Trinidad and Tobago with Delcy Rodriguez and the team, because they are indicted in the US jurisdiction on narcotics, money laundering, and other things. So, again, we saw that the US started to apply a pressure. But moreover, when the US take cognizance of that situation, again, what that does is affect your country from an international standpoint. So the US State Department would then put measures in place, and they will also look at your country as a country that is harboring or a country that is prepared to harbor US criminals. So that also affects the image of your country. The next issue domestically that is interfering with your country's stability and finance is that there are many government officials, as we speak, are under some level of investigation for money laundering and corruption. As we speak. Now, when you have ministers of government in this case, that Financial Investigative Bureau looking into, and then you are seeing sums of money that cannot be clearly accounted for, This, ladies and gentlemen, also attracts the attention of the international community. When you have a prime minister who would stand up and even physically defend those individuals, that too sends a message to the international community that the government cannot be trusted, because if the government does not obey law and order, then the international communities will put a hands-off approach to doing business with your country. You see, when you have agencies that is invested with powers to look into, to examine, to investigate, and to put the information, their findings together and submit, and when they submit, files disappear because one of their own bosom colleagues is in the melee, then we have a problem. I want to draw your recollection back to a file that was sent to the Prime Minister with serious allegations. And what did the Prime Minister did? The same thing he did with the Judith Jones report. The same thing. Somebody had to leak the Judith Jones report for we to know that it was sitting there for 8-9 months, and now it done pass a year and nothing has been done. Somebody had to leak the special branch report on Foster Cummins for the country to be aware that that report was in the hands of the Prime Minister. And what happens is that Cummins was promoted instead of demoted. What do you think the international community would say? It reached so bad that the government spent more money and time to find out who leaked the report than to take action in relation to the report. You could understand that? The government will spend more money and time to investigate who leaked the report than to take actions against the perpetrators in relation to those reports. That is the government that you have in power that the international community will not trust. The fourth item that affects us internationally is that the international investors when you do contract law, like I have a little insight in, it will show you, ladies and gentlemen, how important it is to have a judiciary, a legal system that is not contaminated by political interference. All these contracts, ladies and gentlemen, that these foreign investors will come to your country to invest, those contracts will be binding legally. And when we saw what has happened with our judicial system, that simple matters that an amateur will know, yes, this is wrong and this is right, have to go to the Privy Council for determination. Because we have some individuals who will sit in these prestigious offices making decision on your life and your livelihood, and allow their decisions to be forthcoming by political interference. When you have a Chief Justice who ought to protect the independence of the judiciary, the Chief Justice who should be the watchdog, to ensure that the judiciary is not, must not, cannot be politically influenced. And you see the Chief Justice jump out at the Director of Public Prosecution like if he is a politician. The international community, the investors from far and wide, they would not come and invest in Trinidad, because anything go wrong within the precincts of contracts law, you have to refer back to the courts. And when you see courts are politically motivated, we have 2 or 3 times we had attorney generals influencing chief magistrates on particular political decisions. If you don't believe me, go back to the John Jeremy matter. Go back to Sat Sharma matter. Go back. Don't afraid to go back. Don't afraid to go back. People say living in the past. You better know your past. So in order for you to know where you're going, because you don't want to come out of the past, and when they tell yourself you're going forward, it's back in the past you're going. Go back there. Go back there and watch how attorney generals influence. And if Gaspard wasn't a little strong, that whole Nelson matter with Faris Alwari, Gaspard would have accommodated it if he wasn't a little strong. if the thing didn't grow a little bit on him. So don't feel that the international community is not looking in. They're looking in. They're seeing what's happening. The next thing that the international investors would not come and invest in Trinidad is because they have seen how a government utilizes a crime situation to stay in power. This is facts, not fiction. Too bad you won't be able to get everything here tonight, but I've given you some. They have seen how the government is utilizing a crime situation to stay in power.
Well, they use COVID situation to stay in power. So it's a different thing now.
Crime situation. But here where it goes. While the government benefits from the out-of-control crime situation where you are afraid to come out and expose yourself, you know what is happening? The international community continue to move us up on the index. So while they play and utilize to keep you scaredy cat and to keep you inside and for you not to come out and protest and not to come out against them, and while they utilize what they do best, the international community and the foreign investors would not come to your country because we continue to move up on the index. And today, I am certain on the next reading of the index, we may very well be number 5 or number 4 in the world. Right now, we at number 6. We at number 6. But I am telling you that we will very well move up to number 5 or number 4 in the world. Now, which foreign investors would want to come in your country when they can take their wife and children to the mall without having to pay 15 and 20 police to bodyguard them? Which foreign investors will come to your country when they had to go Maracas? They had to have 5 police and a Coast Guard boat surrounding them for them to bathe inside that perimeter. The boat and them blocking them from the sea, and the police had to go in the water and surround people from coming close to them. Because let me tell you something, the thing gets so skillful now that they may even disappear under the water, and when you catch yourself, they might be in a submarine somewhere and people calling for a ransom. That's how serious the thing get. So which foreign investor coming to you? Added to that, we have had several advisories from the international community telling the people, do not come to Trinidad. Don't come Trinidad. Don't come here. All seen we, and you on the list there? All seen we there on the list? Look, we right there, number 6. We right there, number 6. We below Honduras, and we on top of Guyana. So the problem, ladies and gentlemen, we have advisories not to come to Trinidad. You think foreign investors do this? You think foreign investors is Rowley and Stuart Young and Hines and them? That's what they feel? These people, these foreign investors, they are very educated and they know how to make the capital bring returns. They know how to utilize the capital to bring returns. And those capitals will bring returns to keep their business going from country to country. Who wants to come Trinidad? Who wants to come Trinidad? My mother does vote PNM. Yeah, my mother, she does vote PNM. She said, Victor, if I was in Trinidad when you went for UNC, I'm voting for you. But I have a little problem with that. I have a little problem. But she gone back. She just come here, ping, 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 and now for now she gone again. But I wonder why, like she ain't trust the PNM. Like she ain't trust the PNM. She just coming or she coming? She was just here. But as she spin right and she spin left, back in the States. Back up there. Probably she feels safer up there. Probably the economy better there. I don't know. Look how she put it up there. Message to U.S. citizens. Trinidad and Tobago travel advisories. That is how the thing go. Level 3. That is where we are. So who investor coming? So I keep telling all you, all these things is what we have to study. We can study Rowley and his diploma. All that nice thing they tell Rowley where he saved people's life in COVID. I carry a coffin by the Alsing house. And I carry that coffin representing the amount of COVID-19 death. And I was hoping that the Alsing will come and lie down in the box and cover it back quick. So you understand.
Level 3 means reconsider travel. Reconsider travel to Trinidad and Tobago due to crime.
So yeah,
violent crimes such as murder, robbery, assault, sexual assault, home invasion, and kidnapping is common. Gang activity such as narcotics, trafficking is common.
So yet, that is the reality.
Terrorists may attack with little or no warning, targeting tourist locations, transportation hubs, markets, shopping malls.
Well,
that is level 3.
Well, I think level 3 is up and running, but I commented that actually. I commented that, hold that right there. I commented that, hold that, don't miss it. Let me just close this part off. So I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that you, the people of this country, while these people running with Rowley degree and Rowley doctorate and all that pack of hogwash, you know what I was interested in all of that? I was interested to hear why Rowley get it. That's all I was interested in. They could give him 2 more. As far as I'm concerned, they could give him 2 more. I just wanted to know what was the yardstick used to grant that, and I get that. I sent it for Archie, but the people do a little Photoshop on that day, and instead they put honorary, they put honorary and all that, and I doesn't want to go down that road. I doesn't want to go down that road. But when I hear some of the things that Rowley do, I was wondering if it's weak-eat Rowley they're talking to, I was really watching to see if it's weak-eat Rowley they're talking to. That's all my concern. But I have no problem with Rowley and getting his doctorate. Probably very soon I might be heading for mines. But I ain't want it so. I want to study for it. All right? I want to study for it. That is the direction I go in. So to the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, if they want to put on mascara on Rowley, if they want to carry Rowley in the body shop and paint him over, and they want to dress him up with 15 doctorate and 20 more to come, I am telling you, when all that is done, is the same Keith Rowley you have that giving you pressure, and is the same Keith Rowley that had the country crashing when they done dress him up. They could put him in a gown, they could put him in a pajama. They could put him in a pajama, they could put him in a negligee. Anything they want to put him in, let them put him in. Right? They could put an apron on him, they could do anything they want with him. To the end of the day, it is the same man that have all these questions to answer. That is what I concern about. That is what I concern about. I concern about Rowley and his integrity form. I concern about what the Integrity Commission is doing and why the Integrity Commission would not make a statement. I remember back in the days with Basdio Pandey and all of them, the Integrity Commission put out statements. They put out statements that they was investigating, and they put out statements that they're looking into. So I am wondering why the Integrity Commission is not putting out a statement with Rowley's situation, with his forms. That is what I want to know. If the law is clear that you cannot receive a gift for more than $5,000, what you're telling me about you get a gift for $400 plus $1,000? Where's the Integrity Commission? Is the Integrity in Public Life Act a big joke in this country? Is the Integrity in Public Life Act only works for the opposition? That is what I want to know. We have all these pieces of legislation, but yet still white-collar crime. The real criminals continue to exist in this country. They continue to live lavish. They tell you they break the law. Rowley stand up and tell you that under COVID-19, while they ban everybody and you couldn't drink a beer, he tell you that he drink a beer, he was drinking a beer in Tobago. He tell you and only laugh. While they charge people on the streets. And I hope those persons who get charged never pay. And let us look at discrimination. Because if Rowley could tell this country, he confessed he break the law. And nobody in investigate him. Nobody in go to him for a statement to incriminate himself. Because you know why? Them want power in the TTPS. Them want position in the TTPS. He tell you he break the law. He tell it, he confess. He confess he get a gift 400,000 off when the law say otherwise. He confessed. So it seems as though I want to tell all who break the law, go and confess. Nobody can charge you when you confess. Because the Prime Minister could confess. Rowley tell you, I was the man. I is the man that went to President House. He told you so. He said it to you. The whole police service commission collapse and mash up. They breach every part. They drag the constitution through the mud in this country. And then, while he was saying he don't know, he come and he confess, it was me. He tell you that. It was I. And you know what? It was just I and I and I. And that's the end of the situation. That is the kind of white-collar crime that have Trinidad and Tobago in the position that we are in today. Because you people in this country, you will sit down, stand up, lie down, turn forward, backward, wrong side, overside, and take all that this government doing, and you people will just sit down there and take it. Or they won't even raise a finger to do something more than go on Facebook and type Rowley must go. And I don't know if all they believe, if all they say it long enough and all they say it hard enough that he will go. I don't know if that is what all they believe in, but it seems so to me. So just keep typing Rowley must go and Rowley must go now, and see if Rowley had time with all you. We in this country have enough so that this government should have fallen months ago. There is enough evidence for this government to fall months ago. But you know what is the problem? I will tell you what is the problem here today. The problem here today is all they had no strength in all their body. All is just a bunch of talkers. That is the problem. All they had no strength. All they weak. All they weak. No strength. The amount of evidence it have to collapse this government. But all they want to sit down home. All they expect a selective few to go and do it for all you. You understand? But I want to tell all this again. The more they sit down and the more they relax, is the more the country deteriorates. And let me tell you something. To get back where we were, you wait and see. This generation will die first. You know why? Because all you like it so. I'm coming up the road today and my madam telling me, she said, Victor, why you don't start to do your life once a week? I said, why? She said, Victor, you running up and down, running your blood to water, and these people and them comfortable. Do your life once a week. Leave them there. They don't want to change. You tell them come out to save the self. Come out and walk against crime. With them, Victor Roberts. What you're fighting to save these people who don't want to save themselves for. Spend time with your family. Leave these people, they see about we. You understand? And I blame she for thinking like that. Because when I make sacrifice, the sacrifices start with she. She does make more sacrifice than me. Even though I hear talking, she does make more sacrifice than me. You hear what I'm telling all you? So all you like what's going on in the country? All you like that? Because if the PNM could have mobilized and stand up the way they did between 2010 and 2015, Hines, there's a video with Hines telling people to come out and block the road, block Ryson Road. But all you're saying, we is UNC and proud, we is UNC and weak. That is what we is. We is UNC and proud, we is UNC and weak. That is what we are. The PNM could stand up against the UNC. Even on trump up and fabricated documents that they call email, whatever, gate or wherever. You understand? But Keith Rowley government doing everything worse than any imaginary email. Worse. But they don't have the belly to come out and stand up against the evil that is going on in this country. Although have the belly to get up and stand up against the wrong that is being perpetrated against all you and all your children. All you under siege in this country. They're breaking all your homes. They're murdering all you. They're robbing all you. They're stealing all your cars. They're killing all you in the garden. They're doing everything to all you. And all they want to do is to pop some big poster mark UNC and proud. That's all. We as UNC and we proud. Proud to what? Die and suffer under the PNM. That is he proud. To suffer and die under the PNM. To be treated like rags and dogs under Keith Rowley. That's what they're proud about. Well, if they're proud about that, I ain't proud. And it matters not who tell me stand up or stand down. I am going to do what I have to do in the interest of my children. In the interest of the young people in this country. In the interest of you, the people who fail to stand up for your own self. I am prepared to stand up for you. But I will tell you in your face. We can't be UNC and proud and allow what is happening in this country to happen and then do nothing about it but talk. We UNC and proud and the PNM bathing in the treasury. Nobody sure about our future. They're laughing and skinning at we. But we proud. But them enjoying the benefits. We proud. Them breaking the law. We proud. But we under siege. We the murdering. We the robbing. We homes the invading. I don't know if people feel this is a game. Or some people feel this is some kind of power struggle. I don't know if some people feel this is a power struggle. And somebody feel that somebody come to show them up. Boy, people could feel what they want in this country. They could feel what they want. But me, I am not sitting down. Much less lie down. And take what this government doing. And then raise my head and say, I am UNC and proud. I am UNC and proud, and that is why I will stand up and do what I have to do, despite who like me or who don't like me. I am going to stand up and do what have to be done on the streets in this country. I cannot thank the 100 plus people who came out there on the 6th. I can't thank all you because it shows that all you is UNC and proud. All you is UNC and proud. All you expose, all your face, all you expose, all yourself, all your walk, all your ride, all your travel, who could make the whole walk. And show this country that all you're proud UNC and proud to stand up on behalf of the rest of the country. That is what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. But let me move on. Archie, I'm going to what I tell you to hold it just now. And you was talking about the advisories. And the advisories say that terrorists may strike without warning. And they might strike malls and what else? What else they might strike? Malls and what? Yeah, we will take some calls just now. Let me just wrap this point up quick. So you ain't going to put it up. Let me just go with it. So the advisories tell us that they may happen. Archie, we had Fitzgerald Hines. I wonder if I send that for you, boy, with our interview. Yeah, we had Fitzgerald Hines with our interview a couple weeks ago, Trinidad and Tobago. And this Fitzgerald Hines was speaking to the media. And Fitzgerald Hines were boasting They ask Hines some questions, you know, they ask him one or two questions.
The source of this is both under their attention.
Do we have any intelligence to suggest that it is a legitimate threat at this time?
The police service and the fire service are investigating this matter. I'm aware that the trained officers of the police service are out there making sure that those locations are actually safe, and I await the outcome of the investigations. So thank you all very much.
Only listen, so hear what this is about, you know. This is about what I consider terrorist attack just a couple of weeks ago on our nation schools. Actually, we had a terrorist attack on our nation schools. Because when you have bomb scare, when you have people speaking about over 20, 30 schools at the same time would blow up and explode, and who will dead and who will bleed and whatever. And we have this Minister of National Security stand up and tell the press that everything is under controls and the police are out there and the specialists are making sure that these buildings are safe to return to, and they will get down to the bottom of this. I want to ask Hines today, I want to ask you, Hines, as the Minister of Failed Security, how many persons have been arrested for those threats against innocent minors within the educational system? The professionals, weeks, they justify that they bring equipment from Israel. They justify that they know who the gang leaders are. They justify that it's only a matter of time to fix the problem. But we had over 20 schools shut down. 20 schools shut down. Emails, phone calls, what have you. Bombs will explode. People will bleed. But to date, nobody arrested. What happened, Hines? I hear the same man will get the doctorate stand up and tell all you and infer that came out from the UNC because he says it's not coincident, or it's coincident that the same time the UNC is supposed to vote on that bill that these bomb threats happen. All you remember that? And all let's sit down and all take that and digest it as good coffee. But today they can't tell you nothing. The perpetrators still at large, waiting to strike anytime. Suppose this is a test. Suppose that was just a test that these terrorists carry out, just to look at the response time of the fire service and the response time of the police. Suppose this was just a test, a dry test. Suppose the real thing is yet to come, God forbid. To date, we have nobody arrested. And it seems as though that Hines is furthermore backward to getting any information as to who are the perpetrators on this given situation. But the doctorate man, he want to infer that this come out from the UNC camp. And all the people sit down and take that. All the people sit down and take that from a from a pie minister. I think that is a better word. Can't be prime. Had to be a pie from a pie minister. A minister who it seems as though he can't even make a pie, because here he trying to describe some bowl the other day. And he talk all kind of hogwash. But it seems like macaroni, cheese, and egg with butter mixed up in his brain. So the only thing that will come out his mouth is what does come out after you eat the pie.
So I now check the travel advisory, And out of the couple hundreds of countries,
Pop the numbers at you. Take some call while you talk, while you're discussing that.
of the couple hundreds of countries it have existing in the world, there are
Yeah.
only 12 countries that received a level 3 rating from the US. So Trinidad is very, very conspicuous when it comes to crime and how the world views Trinidad. So I think you were quite right about international investors, much less tourists, right? So I mean, as you start speaking, I start checking the statistics.
Yeah.
And there are only 12 countries that have a level 3 rating.
And Trinidad
And,
Tobago
and
right
I watching
inside that.
hundreds of countries. Yeah.
Welcome, caller. Welcome, caller. Go ahead, caller. Caller, you're live.
Back up this thing. You talk about fear. And you remember our good lawyer called from England last week and talked about the fear he's putting into people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Fear. F. False evidence appearing. That is what that's saying. False evidence appearing. Right? And another thing again. False evidence appearing real. Right? It's what fear means. That's what fear means. And Victor, I want to say what you were talking about when you first started. You're quite right. This is what you call window dressing. This is what you call, and what you call it again, a distraction in the highest degree.
Yes.
To distract the people. Highest degree, this is distraction.
Yes.
Because we have so much of things on the front burner that is the people suffering. Crime is number one. And all the wrong things that be doing in the government. It's ridiculous. That people can fall for stupidness like what we're talking about here. But it's doctorate. We're not interested in that.
Yeah.
We're interested in the country being corrected. And you see, that's what the fear, the people put in the fear. That is why we do that so they don't come out. See? But Victor, as I said, it's not Prime Minister, Victor. We'll leave it with this. It's Crime Minister. You want to have a blessed time.
Thank you, caller. Well, I will change that name to Crime Minister. Thank you, caller. And actually, caller is quite right. You understand? We have so much things to deal with. But I don't know why we just, every nonsense with Rowley, every dotish talk, we just run with that and we make that an issue. The number to call is 373-5488. That's 373-5488. You could call and interrupt me anytime. We have at least about 10 minutes to go, so you could utilize those phone calls. And this is a fact. So we had this bomb threat, and we had all this. Welcome, caller.
Good night, Archie. Good night, Mr. Roberts.
Good night. Good night.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes, sir.
I would like to indulge you in 2 seconds, please. If the Barbados Prime Minister, all respect and protocol acknowledge, excuse, right? Now, if she have anesthesia and a sign of lack and remembering and knowing, right? Mm-hmm. Just like anywhere people go, he don't know nothing, who come on the plane. But you know what is frightening? When we have a general election and he called for Caribbean people to come and observe, you see how scary it is? Mm-hmm. And then again, they want to go to the Caribbean Court of Appeal as the final adjudication for our both criminal and civil matters. You see how scary it is? So if people don't understand what you are talking about, because this thing is a sidetrack to show you now where the dictator is putting on his roots in this country, and because he mashed up all the right-thinking constitution bodies which guide the constitution to the service commissioners and all the commissioners, right? And then we have a police commissioner who is blatantly, openly, is just sitting on the work and carrying out the instructions of the politicians. And people don't understand that. Is that we, the people, have to fix it. Because the EBC
Correct.
is done on the PNM side. So have a nice night.
Correct,
No,
caller,
you go,
correct.
no. Yeah. So when the EDC on the PNM side, the police commissioner on the PNM side, right, is a pure dictatorship, and you see where they run away with the treasury.
Don't
And
forget
then
the
nobody
judiciary.
check it.
Don't forget the
Yeah,
judiciary.
Yeah, the judiciary, because when they can come up and say judges and criminals have judges, right? It's right, because when the Chief Justice could do a crime, right, and associate with the Prime Minister to cover him for not putting the vote of no confidence to trigger off the commission of the Parliament. And then you see Bridget and he said George, right? So the judiciary have it, and Mr. Roger Gaspar, there's a number there. Jump high, jump low. Because you see what you do with Sarah Sarari and the one from England.
Right.
So they will get at him. And people understand that. And every day I come to THM, hey, when the paupers are coming up on the street and standing up, is to show the world that, hey, we need change and they are doing wrong. But Mr. Roberts, Moses do the same thing and he didn't give up. In the end, I will be Peter. I don't know that man. Have a nice night.
Thank you, caller. Welcome, caller.
Yes, good night. I want to talk to Mr. Victor Roberts, please.
Speaking.
Yeah, Mr. Roberts. I find it's time, with this way, you're not safe walking the road. You can't walk the road in peace. Since they decriminalize weed, Rowley and the nasty PNM government. Right? And these young fellas smoking weed in a bottle, school children passing, the place lawless, and they're drinking punching. So a cookie and weed is a donger and punching is a upper. So they're in the middle of nowhere. So they're robbing people. Right? And this nasty Prime Minister, I have no shame. Boy, PNM is, great is the PNM, and thieving is the PNM. Kamala was doing so good and they didn't appreciate nothing, boy. And the same bitches who dragging going back and vote for that bitch, man, we have to move them people, boy. This whole place could be blood.
Well, we heading there already, caller.
No, we had already, I know that.
Yeah.
But that bitch could suffer. He know this life is a temporary life, But the bitch all that money, if you catch your ass, what he go drag. I tell you, God won't sleep, This is not PNM country, This is God own. This is Allah Ta'ala country. Inshallah, thanks.
Thank you, caller. Welcome, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Archie, Mr. Victor.
Good day,
Mr.
sir.
Victor, I know it's difficult, but I wish if you could take your wife advice. Sorry. Because the thing about it, when time to take a little march on the road, see what ethnic group you're seeing going to the river. Huh? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Well, I am my wife smiling here in the studio and say for me to take she advice, yes? Well. So we have just about 3 minutes, Archie. So, ladies and gentlemen, a caller said it a while ago. We have to, you see, I don't know if I'm catching it, The caller spoke of all the independent institutions that has already been captured by the PNM. When these independent institutions are captured, let me tell you something. You ensure to survive in this country is whatever the dictator say is what will happen. And if you try to go against that, then you will be arrested and cast in prison. That is how it works. We have other countries we could look at. We looked at other countries and we saw the behavior. We saw the pattern that is emanating now out of Trinidad. It's the same pattern. It's the same process that you go through to formulate a dictator. It creeps in small dosage. It comes in and it was tested under COVID, Under COVID, it was tested. The people obey everything that the Prime Minister said, whether it was lawful or unlawful. Welcome, caller.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Archie.
Good day, sir.
I just want to endorse what the last caller was saying here about all the so-called democratic institutions captured. And last but not least, that for crime to flourish in a country or state, the way it is in Trinidad, it has to have help from the top.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have people involved in between the lines to make these things possible. So that is one of the major things. As you say, organization is personal strength, personal share is a criminal organization. So PNM is a criminal organization.
Kola, I want to ask you something. Stay on the line, Kola. I want to ask you a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
You remember there's a report that states from the special branch that a government minister is involved in gang-related activities and so on?
Yes.
All right.
And then there was one against any president who was supposed to take care.
Right, correct.
You understand? And Rowley was meeting with, Manning was meeting with people in Caridoc in the 80s and the 90s, 2000, sorry.
Correct, you are right.
So, and on top of that, they stand in the parliament and say they know who all the criminals are, all the gang leaders are, but nobody gets in touch.
You remember Mr. Big? You remember Mr. Big?
He know who is big. But they could form Tonto Makut and Mongoose gang to go and hold a man in Barbados, because that is the state of how dictatorship works. They have a little clique, the Gestapo, Tonto Makut, Mongoose gang, anything you want to call it, and right under the nose, and the media there, and the media ain't saying nothing.
Correct.
The media is the cause of all this in this Trinidad country. So a blessed evening to you all, and catch up.
Thank you very much, Paula, for your contribution. So Archie, here is where we have to leave it. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is where we have to leave it tonight. There's another program that Archie going to be covering, the Compass Foundation. And I ask you you can remain on and tune in to that program also. So until then, stay blessed, stay safe as you can. God bless. Good night.
Arjun indicated that the IMF data showed that the economy declined by over 19% from 2015 to 2021. And I want to repeat that point. The IMF data showed that the economy declined by over 19% from 2015 to 2021. And even with the growth projected for 2023, he claimed that the economy will still be nowhere close to where it was in 2015. And this is a point that I am hoping that we can discuss. I am not seeing Mr. Mariano Brown as yet, but he will be joining us to speak to us in the capacity of an economist. Welcome to everyone who is connecting to the Zoom as well. We also had the business community chiming in and saying it's too soon to tell whether the economy is recovering or not. And some of the specific concerns that were highlighted by the business economy, the business community, sorry, in the media would have been higher than expected inflation rates. And of course, something that impacts all of us, the devastating impact of crime on the economy. Now, tonight, we will be continuing with a realistic discussion of whether or not our economy is indeed on the road to recovery. So we are pleased to have with us tonight Mr. Jai Leeladhar Singh, who is the coordinator and secretary of the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers. He is also the senior corporate manager of a Point Lisas-based manufacturing and construction company, and he is a well-known business consultant in the region and internationally for over 25 years. So welcome to you, Mr. Jai Leeladhar Singh. I know you said to call you Jai, so we will be calling you Jai throughout this discussion. Also joining us, but who is running a little late, is the very distinguished Mr. Mariano Brown. And Mr. Brown has been with us before. I think he was with us a few weeks ago. Not a few weeks, sorry, maybe a few months ago to talk about the dragon gas. So I just want to do a quick introduction of Mr. Brown, although he's not here. And certainly he's someone who needs no introduction. He is the CEO of the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. He is an economist and has a long and distinguished career in banking. And he also served as the Minister of Trade and Industry and the Minister in the Ministry of Finance from 2007 to 2010. So he should be joining us very shortly. I would like to say a special welcome to you, our viewers who have joined us on Zoom, who are going to connect to us on Facebook and YouTube. I'm starting to see the regular faces coming in, people who join us week after week. And of course, there is a large number of people who watch the show later. I want to also welcome the members of the media and thank you for your continued support. Also, members of the Compass Foundation who work diligently behind the scenes week after week to make this show possible. And last but not least, I want to welcome my co-moderator, Shanta Supersad, who is the treasurer of the Compass Foundation. Mr. Safra Sally had a little issue tonight, so he may or may not join us. He is normally a moderator on the program. And our ever popular Chris Hussein, the PRO of the Compass Foundation, he is currently doing final exams and will definitely be back with us next week. I also want to say welcome to Karina Bechan, who is going to help us a little bit with technical tonight as Chris isn't here, so she graciously offered. So Karina, thank you so much. As usual, we're going to start with a panel discussion, after which we will have Q&A and open mic. And as usual, we will aim to end this program between 9 and 9:30 p.m. We will do a hard stop at 9:30 p.m. So I would like to kick off the questions by directing this question to Jai. Jai, you are the coordinator and the secretary of the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers. So for members of the audience who may not know about that organization, could you tell us a little bit about what are the goals and objectives of the organization? And what are some of the activities you all normally get involved in?
Okay. Let me first of all give a historical perspective of the Confederation of Chambers. The Confederation of Chambers was founded 7 years ago, exactly almost the same time, about maybe 6 months after, 6 to 8 months after this PNM government came into power in 2015. What had happened is that, and I want to express to people how chambers evolved in the country. There was the TT Chamber, which the Toronto Chamber of Industry and Commerce, which is the oldest chamber. Then eventually we had the South Chamber. Those were the two main chambers. And then the South Chamber morphed into the Energy Chamber. We had the 1956, the Toronto Manufacturers Association, which focused, as it said, on manufacturing and maybe a couple other activities. And then, of course, the under Ambassador Sally Kowal in the 1980s formed the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago, which for several years I was involved in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Now, what we realized, the regional chambers, I'm talking about chambers outside the region of Port of Spain, is that, and the only two other, the joint chambers I mentioned, Trinidad and Tobago Chamber, AmCham, Energy Chamber, and I mentioned TTMA. TTMA is based in Barataria, but they have a lot of interactions in Port of Spain. AmCham and TT Chamber based in the West, well, one is in Marva Road, one is in West Lawrence. And of course, the Energy Chamber is based in Point Lisas, where rightfully they should be changed from South Chamber, San Fernando to them. Now, the chambers outside Port of Spain felt that they were not being properly represented. When I say not represented, the government marginalized these chambers. They're still trying to marginalize us through the Confederation by not inviting us to important forums. But we keep our voices lifted via the media, both print and electronic. So when we started with several chambers. It was almost about 17 chambers. And then it came down to 15. And now we are about 14 strong chambers. The reason why some of these chambers left, and I'm a little too frank for my own good, but I will say it, is simply because some of these chamber presidents mixed up politics with being a chamber head. One case in point was Mr. Richie Sukai. I don't want to get into it, but we all know where he has ended. And that has, his influence has strained the relationship between the Confederation of Chambers and Shagwana's Chamber. And this is just one example. So we in the Confederation have a saying, said by one of the founding fathers, Rampasad Siraj. They say that if you come into a Confederation meeting, the only jersey you wear is red, white, and black. Whoever likes red, whoever likes yellow, and in some cases, who likes the light blue of MSJ, you wear that outside and you could put it on after. But we are concerned about national issues. The Confederation of Chambers focuses a lot on the small and medium enterprise sector within Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I want to tell the audience that there are 27,000 businesses listed in the Ministry of Legal Affairs. Out of that 27,000, 17,000 are SMEs. I want to repeat that. 17,000 are SMEs and family-based businesses. And that is the stakeholder that we try to work with. We do a lot of advocacy. We have a board of directors, which comprise of 6 members. And I will let you know who our members are for the sake of the audience. So we have the Eastern Business and Merchants Association, which covers the area from Rio Claro all the way up to Grande Tarima. We have the Gasparilla Chamber of Commerce, the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce. There's another association called the San Fernando Business Association, headed by a dynamic woman called Daphne Bartlett. The Penal David Chamber of Commerce. We have the Siparia Chamber. We have the Faizabad Chamber. We have the Point 14 Chamber of Commerce. We also have the Supermarket Association of Trinidad and Tobago, which is an independent affiliate member. We have the Yacht and Marine Services of Trinidad and Tobago, Western Peninsula. Yeah, they want to work with us. We have done a lot of advocacy for them. In fact, to just let the audience know, we are trying to set up a meeting with the head of Immigration and Customs to interact with the Yacht and Marine Services of Trinidad and Tobago. And when we say yacht, we don't mean yacht owners, but there are plenty of people who do business with the yachties in terms of boat repair and many other things that goes with making sure that these yachts are seaworthy. And then we have the Retailers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, headed by Mr. Omar Hadid. Those of you who don't know Omar is, ladies, I know you all will click to this. He runs the Victoria's Secret line, Bath and Body Works, all these other stores, Psycho Body, and so forth. That's Mr. Omar Hadid. He's big into all of this, and plus they have a very large supermarket in East Trinidad called Food Hall. That's who we interact with. We have a couple past presidents that work with us of other chambers, but we depend on them for their technical advice and their experience. So we stand as an independent organization. We are not affiliated with anyone. We do meet with other chambers from time to time. Like Friday, we had a meeting with the TTMA regarding crime. We do intend to have a meeting at the end of the month with the Energy Chamber to discuss crime as well. What we are interested in, and I'm diving into Ms. Dure's direct question to me, are 2 main things. Well, there are several things, but let me hit the 2 main things outside of crime. The ease of doing business. Because Trinidad and Tobago is a difficult country to do business in. And the second thing is national competitiveness. We are not sparking up any new industries or sectors. Everything depends on oil and gas, and oil is becoming a very irrelevant product over time. And the production of oil is in consistent decline. We have a lot of problems with natural gas supply. As a matter of fact, next 2024 to 2026 will be very difficult years for gas. I'm not going to be very pedantic to express the reasons why, but the whole issue surrounds production and management of the gas, especially midstream through NGC. So that is another big problem as well. You see again, we have to keep remembering things. Look at the whole issue regarding Atlantic LNG. I don't know if you all remember, but they have just put out a notice to retrench all the employees. Today, I understand Caridoc has sent home some people as well. So people saying that the economy has recovered and these activities are taking place, there is a complete mismatch. What is also a complete challenge within the time of the Confederation is the COVID-19 pandemic. Businesses were locked down, not making any income. And then there was the struggle between vaccinated and unvaccinated. That even had internal tensions within the Confederation because there was the pro-vaccine and there was the anti-vaccine. But the thing about it is that we had no choice but to be pro-vaccine simply because of the fact that we are looking for a fast reopening. I don't think that the medical people, Dr. Parasram and his crew, understood the balance between lives and livelihoods. And that was the issue. So while the public servants and the police and these medical people like Dr. Parasram continue to draw their salaries, the private sector people were not able to pay their employees. And that was a serious issue. Now, let's come down to the matter of the economy. I know Mr. Brown could deal with that in a little greater detail, but I'm giving into it from the pragmatic businessman's point of view. There are 4 buckets that constitute the well-being of our economy: government spending, business investment, consumer confidence, and the ratio of a country's exports to its imports. Now, really and truly, government has not been spending that much money as it is in the past. And there are not much projects that are taking place. There's this highway in Eastern Trinidad. Well, many people call it the highway to nowhere. Nothing really. I don't know what is really happening there or what is the purpose of that highway. I have no problem with places like Toko and so on getting some resources for development. But I can't see how this particular highway is impacting the national economy. That's just one example. However, in the past, when we used to do things to fix roads, when we do things for construction, when we do things regarding port development and other things like the construction of the waterfront towers and so forth, those were activities that spurred the economy. Now, when the government does these things and they have other things under their control, for example, national security, then you're going to see businesses investing because confidence has raised. When business invests and expand, they're able to absorb the workforce, they're able to manage the circular flow of money, they're able, and money supply, although that's a central bank function, and they are also able to give the consumers the power of choice. What else we are putting into the market for people to access? And I'll give the example of Mr. Omar Hadid. Now, let's touch on this one, because I want to draw a parallel to consumer confidence here and consumer confidence in China. I just drawing 2 parallels for the edification of the audience. Now, we had a lot of consumer confidence in Trinidad and Tobago over the years. But after the COVID-19 pandemic and the rise in crime and the nebulous governmental policies, because we really don't understand where the government is going, we in the business sector, we are just trying to survive on a day-to-day basis, hoping that that our businesses will continue in the mode of inertia, and hoping also that the crime situation will be checked and will be reduced. Wishful thinking, but I only have a Trinidad and Tobago passport. I don't have a US passport or English passport, Lizelle. So I have to live here. Now, the consumer, last Christmas, and even the Christmas before, were the worst Christmases that the SME sector experienced, and people were not spending money. They spend money on the groceries and maybe the pharmacies, but the extra spending was not there. The salary increases is not there. The Christmas bonuses or performance bonuses is not there. Gas has gone up. A lot of other things have gone up. Inflation is spiking still, irrespective of what the central bank really is saying. But at least the CSO is putting forward a fairly good and a fairly reasonable picture of what is happening regarding inflation. So our spending power has been numerically reduced. Now, I want to just dive into China. regarding consumer confidence. China lives on trade. That is how their economy succeeds. A lot of trade, that's what they do. And the goods are very cheap. And that means they pay their workers very low wages. Hence, the workers are not able. Paying the workers low wages doesn't support a domestic market in China. So for China to survive, they have to export. That is not, well, was not the case so in Trinidad and Tobago. And although consumer spending has dropped quite, confidence has dropped quite a lot, it isn't that bad yet. But we are hoping that with the whole issue of paying contractors and paying the VAT returns, something could gel, but I'll go into that. Let's talk about the country's ratio for imports to exports. Now, what I want to say is this. We exported a lot of petroleum products, particularly the refinery. That is what carried Trinidad and Tobago for a long way. The closing down of the refinery is one of the worst policy decisions this government has ever made. And they got people like Wilfred Espini and others to give a false narrative of what was really happening in Petrotrin. They had their problems, but the problems was exacerbated by mismanagement of past administrations, in particular, the gas to liquids plant, which was a major failure, and the inability to manage the trade union called the OWTU to ensure that productivity at least was something that was taking place in the refinery. That is the reality of the day. I am not against trade unions. I was a member of a trade union once, Bank and General Workers Trade Union under Vincent Cabrera. But they were a little too abrasive, and they didn't know that their actions was causing more damage to a valued state enterprise. Now, the central bank is saying that's how our non-oil sector is growing. I still haven't seen any visibility of that. The sales of cement and construction continues to decrease. When they say manufacturers increase, maybe manufacturing in its purest sense may increase, but they have taken petrochemicals, ammonia, urea, methanol, and placed that under manufacturing. And hence we see this increase in manufacturing output. But the reality is those activities really belong in the energy sector. If they want to put it under manufacturing, in my opinion, it doesn't really give a true picture, because our manufacturers just make basic goods. There is no move or investment by our manufacturers to get into high tech, to get into artificial intelligence. That is simply not happening, and we are not keeping a pace in the world. And the reason why we're not keeping a pace in the world is that everything that we do, every system we have, is stuck in a time capsule. And the biggest culprit in that is the public service. The public service is not moving forward. And that is why the ease of doing business, we continue to rank 105 to 110 out of 190 countries. We, which was once called the Singapore of the Caribbean. And that has not been done because no conscious effort has been made to modernize the state. Modernization of the state is the term the World Bank used for public sector reform. So when a prime minister gets up and say he wants to remove the service commissions, eyebrows are raised. These are the things that affect confidence building. When an attorney general gets up and say he wants to remove trial by jury and have judge alone, it creates trepidations where people push back. And this is what is affecting investment confidence by the business sector. This is what is affecting the whole issue of lack of foreign investment thereof. Because when a country wants to, if they want to invest in Trinidad, the first thing they do is they go into the ease of doing business report and they look at the country's rankings. There are several variables: starting a business, bankruptcy laws, rights of minority shareholders, registering property, construction permits, access to finance, access to electricity, and so forth. It's the same thing with our banking sector. They are stuck in a time capsule and not getting involved in any type of competitive financing. If you want to open special accounts, they are all asking you for all your financial statements, especially if you want to get into online banking. They are creating a bureaucracy within themselves. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the central bank, and those are the matters that the Confederation is going to raise. The whole issue with checks, I understand that banks are not accepting certain checks. I don't know, they come up again with another policy without even talking to the customer. And that's another issue as well. So coming back to the Confederation of Chambers, we want to see a thriving SME sector throughout Trinidad and Tobago. I was amazed some years ago when we had a meeting with Christian Mute at the Cuba Chamber. I was the manager there then, to discuss the whole issue of fast-tracking projects. And he said he couldn't believe that Central Trinidad and South Trinidad was littered with so many businesses. Where do you live, Mr. Mute? And that is the great thing about Trinidad. We have a lot of businesses out of the, I'm not getting into oil and gas, but out of the oil and gas sector that are there, especially a lot of retail and contractors and so forth. What we need to do is to create the enabling environment so that these businesses could continue to thrive and grow, and that more businesses could spring up, especially businesses that are owned by women and businesses that are run by young people, especially the tech industries. And I mentioned about AI, and I also mentioned about internet-based organizations that can serve a strong purpose in Trinidad and Tobago. But we have need for other type of sectors as well. Medical services. We're looking at the whole issue regarding tourism. Yes, that is something that can fly. But of course, we don't want the bandits robbing the tourists. That is going to be a big turn-off if that really happens. But if you look at what happens on the islands, they are, especially Barbados, they are making their living through tourism, and they are doing it very well. In fact, someone told me in Barbados and up the other islands, they don't have foreign exchange problems. So with these few words, I just want to tell you, this is what the Confederation of Chambers want to achieve. We want to be recognized. We want to stand on our own, representing the chambers that are under our purview in order to foster growth in the rural and suburban areas of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
I just want to say welcome to Mr. Mariano Brown. I see he has joined us. Mr. Brown, welcome. Mr. Brown, if you are trying to speak, you are on mute.
Right. I was trying to unmute, sorry.
Wonderful.
Recognize me.
So, Mr. Brown, well, we just had a very informative dissertation from Jai, speaking about the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers, its roles, its functions, and some of the activities and hopes of the business chambers. But I would like to get straight into the meat of the discussion with you. And straight off the bat, should we take comfort in the IMF's assessment that the economy is recovering?
Economic forecasts always have a huge amount of, well, uncertainty. And the IMF over the last 4 years has been revising its numbers on a continuous basis. It always does. But its percentage variations have not been small. And that's because it has complained, and the report this year, it publishes 2 reports, one in April, one in October, at its, what is called its spring and autumnal meetings, where all of the, the world ministers, members of the IMF get together to determine or to review what are the difficulties that the world will face and how can policies be coordinated to bring some level of recovery, or alternatively to find a way to survive, walk through it. Now, the IMF numbers were done and completed in December. They left Trinidad and Tobago in January. The report which they released in January would have been based on the numbers which they had been presented with and which they would have reviewed with the CSO and the Minister of Finance. So it would have been based on best available information at this time. The World Economic Outlook, in its executive summary, uses the following words: that there's a fog of uncertainty, quote unquote, with respect to the performance of the world economy, and that there are more risks to the downside. All right. Now, those are pretty sharp words. What they really mean is that whilst we are projecting growth, things could go wrong. And there are many things which are in play that are causing recalibration, not the least of which would be the war in Ukraine, where Russia is, the response of the world to inflation, and the fact that most of the developed nations have done and used what one would call monetary policy to clip inflation's wings. By definition, that means they have been adopting higher interest rate strategies, which effectively slow the economy down and slow the rate of investment. And on that basis, since the inflation outlook remains strong, the activities of the central bank, particularly of the major industrial countries, this would include the US, the UK, Europe, and to some extent, some of the countries in Asia. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is that the Asian economies are not growing as fast as they were growing previously. The leader in this is China, where its rate of growth has slowed down. That has also been influenced by what one would call fairly restrictive policies and a bit of what one would call also the beginning of a trade war between the US and China. Now, those, by definition, mean that the imponderables are going to take place. Europe has largely recovered from the difficulties associated with cutting off of Russian oil and gas. The US is now shifting its cargoes, it now has found an export market. The export market is Europe. Qatar is sending as much gas as it could to Europe as well. And the result is that prices have come down substantially. The price of oil has fallen from just over $100 to something in the region of 70 something dollars, 72, 73, right, depending upon which type of oil that you use. So to energy outlook, food prices, and that's the real problem, food prices have been driving inflation, and the central banks have also affected that, and other countries have had difficulties. China is going to run into a period where it's not going to grow as fast because the one China policy, the one child policy in China, which has been was in existence for over 50 years, has now had the effect of what one would call a graying population. Many countries are faced with that difficulty. All of the countries that resist immigration are faced with that problem, right? That means France, that means England, that means, well, not North America, China, many of the larger countries, literally all of Europe are graying. So you have some other influences. Now, Europe has largely been able to avoid a recession because they have settled the energy question. They have now new supplies, and they are ramping up the delivery and build out of renewables, which works well for the world, for the economy. So where does that leave Trinidad and Tobago? Well, much of our trade is in US dollars, US dollar denominated exports, and 80% of our foreign exchange is earned from one sector. We now have the petrochemical sector as part of our manufacturing sector. So the manufacturing sector looks a little stronger than it really is. The energy sector accounts for approximately 30% of GDP, and prices are falling. When the minister was flagellating, beating up all commentators like myself, we said didn't know what the oil prices were, or the gas prices, or they're mixing it up with Henry Hub and so on and so forth. So he revealed the real trend in the numbers, and the trend in the numbers show that the price of natural gas, the realized price of natural gas between October last year, when he said he was using the wellhead price of $6 was at $11.61 at the time. So he's saying that he was conservative. He only used 50% of the real number. But it has fallen to $4.12 at the 31st of March 2023. Well, that's a 36.5% decline. All right. And then in my column, I said it was 40. And in the previous week, I had estimated a decline was somewhere in the region of 60%. So I'm a few percentage points off. But as at the end of March, right, he didn't say what the figures were in May, right? And the price had continued falling since then. Now, if we had continued to the end of April, you will see that the fall off would have been something in the order of just under 50%, which I guess is smaller than my 60, but not that much. And petrochemical prices, and in particular ammonia is the most important one, because ammonia had the biggest jump in revenue last year. Average ammonia prices went from about $200 a ton, $143 a ton to $1,750 US a ton at its highest point. It averaged $1,150 for all of last year. The Caribbean price quoted by S&P Commodities on the 4th of May gave a price of a middle price. In other words, it gives a range of prices between $335 and $345, right? Which is a 70% fall off. So the reality is that the key export of foreign exchange earners are declining. What is most important, when prices decline, what you would expect to compensate for is by increasing the volume of output. Well, the volume of output in the case of Trinidad and Tobago is like one of those supply curves that you draw a straight line top and bottom. It's like you hit a wall and can't go any further. Well, that's where we are. In fact, the curve might be trending downwards. It's not an upward sloping curve. It's a declining curve. It's a declining curve because we've probably used too much gas. In our effort to grow the economy quickly, we brought on a whole set of projects which had a huge demand for gas. Right? Our installed plant capacities for 4 billion cubic feet. Our highest production was 4.2. We're somewhere between 2.5 and 2.8. Angeline, Jupiter, and Matapal, when they came on, brought the production up from 3.3 in 2013 to 3.6 in 2018. And then in 2019, you had the failure of the BP's infill drilling program. What the infill drilling program does is you have to drill additional wells. And if you want to keep your production up, then you have to find new sources of supply, which means you continue to drill. Now, BP has also suspended or alternatively sharply reduced its drilling activity. The net result is what we are seeing. Declining production, or production which is standstill. So the reality is that our major foreign exchange earners are about to run into a bit of difficulty. And we will probably find ourselves in the same position we found ourselves in 2019 and the beginning of 2020 with plant closures, because there just simply isn't enough gas to go around. Now remember, Trinidad is the second largest exporter in the world. It doesn't mean that we're the biggest manufacturer of ammonia. We aren't. China and America produces far more ammonia than we do. The point is they don't export it. The two or three countries in the world that exports ammonia in that way is Russia, Trinidad, and Belarus. Right? So that has an impact on the world market. But at the same token, if demand falls, as it has in some senses, and precisely because the larger countries have been using demand suppression techniques to control the rate of inflation, well, the market kind of drop out, the bottom drops out of the market. That's one. The second part of that is that because we've become a little bit more settled and we understand the dynamics of what is taking place in Ukraine versus Russia a little better, right? Prices are still coming down. So here we are. So the demand for major exports is declining. Therefore, foreign exchange is going to decline. The real difficulty with that is that the rest of the economy depends on the foreign exchange which is generated. I don't need to say too much more about that because we knew the difficulties we were running into between 2016 and literally 2021. We always had foreign exchange shortages. And that affected the performance of the economy. And it will affect the performance of the non-energy manufacturing sector. Why? Because they don't use local inputs. Anything that they need to do is imported. And literally, the coefficient, the import coefficient is somewhere between 70 and 80%. In other words, of every dollar we spend, for whatever purpose, about 70% of it, 70 cents on it, 70 to 80 cents on it goes away by way of foreign exchange. So that has some implications moving forward in terms of the performance of the rest of the economy. Now, today, there's a little firming up in the energy prices. Right? So that means the price of natural gas would probably firm. But the bottom line is that the realized price of natural gas in Trinidad at $4 is still right. That's at least 30% lower than the wellhead price that the minister projected. So for this year, government's revenue seems safe on the basis of what the minister is saying. But if your revenue declines and or remains constant, you really have to manage your expenditure. And the evidence is that the expenditure is rising. If only as a result of the wage settlements that are going to take place in the public sector, as well as all the other things which we have postponed. When you postpone capital expenditure like maintenance of roads, like maintenance generally, right, it catches up with you because it then becomes more expensive to do it when you have to do it. So there are some issues moving forward. So let's go back to the 3.2% rate of growth. Well, if you are losing, the energy sector is not going to grow to by 2.9%. That's one of the fundamental assumptions. So if you wanted to do some arithmetic, right, and you look at the energy sector at 30%, well, if it's a 30% contributor, it's not growing by 2.9%, right? So you could work out 30 multiplied by 2.9 multiplied by 3.2, right? Kind of tells you where the number is going to fall. It's going to be below 3.2%. And since there are knock-on effects, you can expect that 3.2% will be further dented by any slowdowns anywhere else. So Trinidad and Tobago will have some growth this year. How much? Not 3.2%. What's it going to be like next year? No, that's the hard question. Are prices going to go back up? When I talk about prices, I mean energy prices. Is our foreign exchange reserves going to go back up? The answer is no. Are we going to be able to recover and or add to the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to basically bring it up to where it was before? No, because we don't have the surpluses to do it. And if you're going to run into a deficit budget now, and by the way, the IMF says it expects that we are going to run into deficit budgeting in the medium term. Whilst it is praising government and saying, well, we recognize your commitment and you say you want to do X, Y, and Z, but hang on a second. You see what you have planned there in terms of expenditure? Well, that can't work. Because if it does, it means you're going to run into deficits. When you run into deficit, it means that the national debt is going to go up because you're going to have to borrow. And if the minister is telling me, as he did in the mid-year review, well, the overdraft at the central bank is down, so he has some space. Well, when they borrow from the central bank or you borrow from the capital market, same thing, is borrowing. Right? Just that one remains a little bit more hidden than the other. That's it. So at this stage, the outlook is for, what shall we call it? Muted optimism. Right? If you're a realist and you say, well, hang on a second, what are we going to plan for? Well, we have to plan for a situation where demand is likely to be depressed. And that's a reality. By how much? Well, it's probably likely in 2024, the IMF is saying 1.5% or 2%, somewhere about that. If you blow on that, and it will disappear. If we get 1% growth, That's a positive. That's great. Unfortunately, in real terms, it's not going to help us. So we're in difficulties. All right. So I would say that the position now moving forward is that the minister has very few degrees of freedom in terms of what he's going to do for the next 2.5 years. Now, the real problem is that in 2.5 years, we have election. What do governments do in the run-up to the election? They spend. Right? They spend, and they spend unsustainably. Now, that's the difficult part. Holding the government to responsibility. Yeah, you want to get back in office, so you understand that. But there's a duty to the population, there's a duty to our citizenry to try to keep things on an even keel. People will argue that people are suffering outside, but there's nothing the government could do about that. The government doesn't have a wealth of money. It earns money on the basis of the success of the economy and how individuals do well. If the individuals do well, if the economy does well, the government does well. If the economy isn't doing well, the government is not going to do well. And deficit financing, those nice Keynesian terms that you put money into the system and you help pump up the system, only works if you have an economy that can respond to external stimuli and can export more. The reality is we fundamentally depend on foreign exchange. And we have been reluctant to deal with the issue of diversification. And the IMF in its last report also raised that and indicated that it is something that the government has to pay more close attention to. I think the word is urgent. Right? Now, you can't change an economy in 2 years, you can't turn it in 3 years, you can't turn it in 5. Right? Changing an economy is a 20-year exercise. So the point is, when should we have started? Well, 20 years ago. Right? We ought to have done more. But we can't do anything about that now. So the only thing we could do is to do what we can do today. And that means committed citizens, committed businesses. Which brings us to some other issues. When do businesses invest? Well, when they're comfortable. And by the way, businessmen have to go home at night just like the rest of us. They have to, they go out to dinner. All right. So the level of crime is an issue because it's random. It's increasingly random. It could affect anybody. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen on a corner. You don't know if you're going to be an innocent bystander. All right. So that is also something to keep in mind. And we do have evidence that some of the companies that have done very well in Trinidad and Tobago are now also investing abroad in a much more significant way than they did before. So if you want to expand the economy, it's not necessarily those companies that are going to expand it for you. Yes, they still continue to invest. Yes, they're still important. It means that we have to look at a different positioning, and we have to start looking at different types of businesses and different business people in terms of the expansion. And that expansion must have a strong export coefficient. So the reality is, just to borrow the words of the IMF in terms of its world economic outlook, not for Trinidad and Tobago, but it is an important phrasing. There are more risks to the downside, meaning there are many more things that could go wrong than could go right. Unfortunately, that's where we are. And I would end on that note.
No, before, I know Shanta wants to come in, but I just want to say good night to everyone who is on our YouTube side and Facebook side. The last time I checked, there were about 300 people with us online. So good night, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying the conversation at Sydney. Has been very interesting so far. Shanta?
Mr. Brown, you came in with everything. And I know it comes from your wealth of information that even I didn't even get a chance to say, well, stop you. Let me ask you something. You came with every single thing. But just going back to what you said, that especially when we have 2 years remaining, we're in an election year, and shortfall in revenue, how do you think the Minister of Finance is going to get the money to spend for election year? Is it that we're going to see more borrowing dipping back into the HSF fund? What do you think?
Well, let's leave out the HSF fund for the time being. All right, we don't know how that is going to operate. Let's just say that I expect him to spend more, and some of the expenditure is going to be completely defensible, right? The roads are in a poor condition, you know. They have to be fixed. It's not a small undertaking. I did some extensive driving over the weekend, and the evidence of road slippages and potholes, you know, to the rolling stock everywhere, right? And that's also a function you have to fix. You have to fix WASA. Now, I left out some easy parts. Now, consider this, just to add this in. If the energy plants shut down, why did we build this Alcott? To provide water to the energy sector companies, because they could afford to pay for desalinated water. It is because we have not been able to fix WASA that the government, and in this particular instance, it was the PNM, asked this Alcott to increase its capacity. Now, desalinated water is not cheap. So once I enter a contract to you, and this is a contract, meaning you have agreed to pay me, and the contract is basically worded on take or pay, meaning I have made the water available. If you don't use it and you don't take it, you gotta pay for it. Now, guess what happens when the energy sector companies stop or close down? When you have heavy machinery has to be cooled. The same way that your engine uses oil and water, so do heavy machinery in the energy sector. So they use a lot of water. They don't buy directly from this Alcott. They buy from WASA. WASA buys all of this Alcott's water. And in those circumstances, when the energy sector companies stop paying, well, WASA now has an increasing deficit. And if it wasn't able to do the necessary capital repairs to fix all the leaking pipes, to dig them up and replace them and put in the flow telemetry and everything else is required, they now have an increased deficit. That's one. So that means that government has to find some more money to bail out WASA, and at the same time undertake some capital changes, capital improvements in WASA, because every once in a while you have to replace your pipes, you have to replace your pumps, you have to replace all those other kinds of things that make water possible. So and we know that there's a difference, and we know there's weakness. Now just consider TNTech. TNTech has installed plant capacity equivalent to something in the region of about 50% more than what we need. What happens when the energy plant shut down? Well, one of the reasons why we have such high installed plant capacity is that we expected to expand the industrial segment of Trinidad and Tobago. So when they start shutting down, it means that installed plant capacity has to be paid for. So one or two things have to happen. Either one, government has to have a subsidy, or two, we have to pay more for electricity. And we're already paying a lot less than we should. So they have a couple of other price increases going to come. So the rate of inflation is also going to be affecting people's disposable incomes are going to be affected. And that has a knock-on effect in terms of how the rest of the economy goes from a demand coefficient perspective. Right? These are difficult times.
Now, let me just ask you one thing. You mentioned and you spoke about crime. We see every year for our national budget, billions of dollars are allocated towards crime and whatnot, towards national security, that is. Yet the crime situation gets worse. What, especially in this economic that we're in, from an economic perspective, what do you think causes this?
We spend a lot of money every year, you know, on all kinds of things, but we don't really measure performance. And we don't set performance targets. As a former minister in the Ministry of Finance, this is what I'm going to say. We don't get the bang for the buck for our expenditure buck that we get. And we don't pay as much attention to expenditure management. And by definition, let's put as an accountant, right? You spend money when there's activity. So you have to make certain that the activity that you're doing generates a positive impact, is useful, it's necessary, and works for the benefit of all. But that doesn't mean to say that we mustn't pay attention to efficiency. And the reality is that we are quite inefficient in the way we spend money. That's it. And national security is just one of those places.
I want to come in here now, right? We are going to go into the Q&A as well as the open mic, and we have a lot of questions piling up, right? I want to direct this question to you, Jai. So this is a question coming, I think it's either from Facebook or YouTube. If the business chamber were more concerned about some of the issues we have discussed tonight, like unemployment and a slowdown in growth in certain aspects of the economy, they would put pressure on Keith Rowley to do something about it, but they're not. And I just, not that we want to make this political, but I want to get your comments on that. Do you think the business chambers are putting enough pressure on the government to bring about the results that we need right now?
Let me say this, please. And I speak only in the context of the Confederation of Chambers. Before I begin, it's nice to be in good company with Mariano. So I wanted to mention that. The Confederation of Chambers have been lobbying government for the longest while. And I'm using the word lobby. Sometimes they call us a pain in the backside, but we will persist. When there was the changing of the polymer, the cut notes to the polymer notes, and there was given a reasonable deadline, we lobbied for that. When there was a lockdown regarding the COVID-19 and businesses were not making income, we lobbied for that very hard. Okay, what we have been doing now is that we have been having sessions on crime and meeting with the senior executives of the police service, even the commissioner of police. But more now, we decided to put our efforts towards the senior executives in the police service to gain an understanding of what is going on, what skill sets that they need that we can help in the business sector. One thing we don't have the type of members with the deep pockets like the other chambers to fix vehicles. And then there are issues inside there where that view is. If we are paying taxes, why fix vehicles? That's a government thing. We pay our taxes. But there are times when we have 17 mechanics that help them fix vehicles and so on with mechanical failure. We have been at the government's throat at the ministerial level, dealing with crime, dealing with the economy, dealing with matters that are pertinent to creating an enabling environment in the business sector. Mariano, we have been lobbying heavy for the improvement of the ease of doing business, but I don't know if we are getting through to the Minister of Trade because she has lovely conversations with us and it's all fluff. Nothing happens. So we have now to lobby with the senior public servants to see what could be done, and even they are limited to what they could do. So the Confederation of Chambers is very concerned. We are working with people at the senior police service level. We are working with people at the governmental level. We are trying our best to carry on our views, but we can only do so much. Mariano said it just now, and I said something in my earlier discourse, something called the modernization of the state. We need serious public sector reform or we will go nowhere. Mariano talked about expenditure management, and they don't. The public sector don't implement things well. Mariano spent some time in there. I have done some time consulting in the public sector. I could tell you that. And until removing the service commissions is not the answer. I don't know what happened to the Prime Minister on Sports Day, right? I really don't know. But what I am saying is that we need to do some transformation process re-engineering. We need to do some recalibrating in the public sector to make them more responsive. And as of today, it is not happening. Thank you.
Okay, I know Dr. R. Augustus Phillip is with us, former Senator Dr. Phillip, and he wishes to make a contribution. Dr. Phillip?
Good night to you, your panel, and to your two guest speakers. I want to state a disclaimer first and foremost that the views that I am going to express here are basically mine. I have been working for over the last few years in different CARICOM countries, helping with projects, and the issue has always been there's no shortage of projects to develop is financing. So I want to touch on when we talk about the finance market, we talk about capital expenditure that Mr. Brown spoke about, and also the private sector, the small and medium enterprises. But if we look at the small and medium enterprises that are listed on the stock exchange, today there's just basically two. And Jamaica took a decision to try to encourage the listings, which means that you could raise funds for your own investment and own development. And I think that is lacking in Trinidad. When we talk about the financial market, we talk about securities market, we talk about the finance market, and insurance and banking, and all these things were mentioned. But I want to mention that I don't see a lot of businesses using the securities market to raise capital. For instance, crowdfunding for innovation, REITs, which is real investments in terms of real estate investment trusts, and issues as that. Mario also mentioned TNTech and WASA. I just want to mention, yes, we look at the Henry Hub, but the amount of gas we have committed to TGU, and we only use a small amount, and now the government is looking to increase the prices to the consumer. We only consume a small amount of electricity. A large portion was really geared towards industry, the 4 trains, and these trains are being shut down now because of gas. But what I'm thinking about is the avoided gas. We use a lot of gas. I think it's the average of about 5 million cubic feet of gas a day for electricity. And if we take that amount of gas, which is called avoided gas, compress it and sell it as LNG, it will cover our entire budget, which is about $10 billion US. So we did go through a slight boom, $500 million more we got. And that was external shock because of the Russia-Ukraine war. It's of course not sustainable, and Trinidad and Tobago got a kind of holiday in terms of we were able to get that windfall. What I'm looking at is how to get out of these problems that I know I highlight the problems. So the last few minutes, I want to say for the energy sector, we definitely have to find some gas and get the multinational to explore, because we don't really own equipment, we don't even own the oil fields. They own it, and we have encouraged them to invest here, so we need to revise the taxation laws in that regard. In terms of transport, the traffic in Trinidad is horrendous. And why can't the government, if you had COVID, pay everybody to stay home, the public servant, tell them to come to work for 9 o'clock and finish work 3 o'clock, and basically let the private sector work from 8 o'clock. The idea is to stagger the hours, so you reduce the number of cars on the roads. The other issue that was mentioned was the issue of food prices. And we have some monopoly that I noticed being given to, some people to import all the foods. It happened with our milk products where the Carson field and Waller field was damaged and destroyed. And then other people have a monopoly now on those products. So we need to invest a lot more money in our food prices. And then the other issue is the one of housing. Right now, the government tried to subsidize houses through HDC, but only people with a certain party card and politics get involved in that distribution. You have to be able to kind of remove all those transfers and subsidies if we want to fix the economy. And when I look at the IMF report, my last comment is that it's a sweetener. So the government will have to go on borrow in a year or two time, borrow money from the World Bank and IMF. And when I look at the report, that is what I saw. So with that, Nisha, I thank you. And those are my comments.
Thank you for your contribution, Dr. Philip. I will allow Mariano to respond to those.
Well, the total volume of gas, natural gas, used by TNTech is not 5 million cubic feet a day. It's 250 million cubic feet a day. That's one. No economy ever develops on expensive energy. They develop on cheap energy. But at 6 cents per kilowatt hour on average, so that means that there are some that are 2 cents at kilowatt hour and some that are higher. At 2 to 6 cents, an average of 6 cents per kilowatt hour, we are paying 15% of the economic cost of power generation. So we could argue that the plants use up a lot of power, but they pay probably the highest rate. So the bottom line, if they are having problems and we increase prices, well, we can expect that some of them will close. So that's the reality. But if everybody has to suffer, well, then that's the point. No multinational company owns oil fields in Trinidad and Tobago. What they have is a right to explore or a right to extract. And that is determined or generates what we know as royalty payments. In other words, regardless of, we're not talking about profit here. For every cubic foot of gas you get, you pay an X percentage in terms of royalty. For every X you generate in terms of oil, you pay a royalty. The royalty numbers were revised upwards. I think what we have to do is to determine how do we compare internationally. Yes, there are changes which have to be made on the petroleum taxes route, but at the same token, if we want to encourage, get the international energy sector companies to basically invest more, to develop to drill is something in the region about $60 million around. So, and it could be dry. So it means that you go to drill and you spend $60 million and you don't have anything to show for it. So it's not cheap. And you're right that neither Heritage nor NGC have the capacity to explore. So there are some issues in terms of whether we generate more or not. There is an opportunity for renewables, but the reason why nobody has taken on renewables seriously is that the average cost of renewable per kilowatt hour is somewhere in the region of between 10 and 12 cents. It may have come down, but 10 and 12 cents is still approximately 50% more than what TNTech charges. And we don't have any of the necessary legislative changes which would allow for people who have surplus energy to sell back into the grid and all that. We are way behind the 8 ball where that is concerned. So there are lots of things which have to be done. The point that Jai makes with regard to the ease of doing business, I think we have to become more specific, Jai. We have to stop talking about the ease of doing business and say government needs to fix X, government needs to do Y, government needs to reduce A, B, C, D, right? Because I don't think they take us on, and I don't think the public doesn't understand it. And until and unless they do, you're not going to put any pressure on government. So those were my first few short words in response to Dr. Phillips.
Risha, just let me respond to one thing to Dr. Phillips. Mariano, your point is noted, and we will get into these specific matters. Once we get into it, I'll just pass the list on to you just for your comment. Thanks. The issue of raising money in the capital markets is not something at this point in time that our members see as anything attractive. There are issues regarding the operations of the stock exchange that we have some trepidations and issues with, and the manner it is done is a very expensive venture, and not everyone wants that level of scrutiny regarding their businesses at this point in time. So, I'll put it in plain, we don't see the stock exchange really handling a lot of transparency or confidence building measures for us to come on board. There are two companies there. They will remain as two companies for quite some time, simply because we don't see that kind of comfort to join into that type of capital market under the specific stock exchange, under the specific management. I will say no more on that. Thanks.
All right, now just doing a quick time check. It's 9:10, so we will do a hard stop at 9:30, right? So if anyone has any questions, I know the chat is filling up with questions, but if anyone has any final questions, please add it to the chat, or if you would like to make a contribution, raise your hand. Now, I want to thank Kasraj for coming. He is with us every week, and he always gives us some fantastic questions. I don't know when it will reach a stage where he will actually want to ask these questions himself or make a contribution, but we look forward to that day. I'd like to take one of Kasraj's questions here. The minister said our economy is back to pre-COVID level. That would be, of course, the Minister of Finance, Colin Embert. How could this happen when most of the businesses that were closed remain closed and our revenues decreased? And he is also claiming full employment. Now, Jai, from your perspective of being a businessman and also coordinator of the chambers and so on, would you care to comment on this?
Lisha, you need just to repeat the question. Everything frees up a while ago. So okay. I won't be, okay.
All right. So the question, the question is based on Minister Colin Embert's his statements that the economy is back to pre-COVID level. How could this happen when most of the businesses that were closed remain closed and our revenues decrease? And he is also claiming full employment. So I'm just asking for comment on that.
From the Confederation perspective, we don't fully agree with that. A lot of businesses, I got in trouble for quoting a number in the front page of the Trinidad Guardian, but I quoted a number of 6,000. Some people disagreed and put 3,000, some put variation figures. But I know a lot of businesses, both in the formal and informal sector, closed down. They have not recovered. These people are into other activities, not necessarily entrepreneurship. And the issue of full employment, we have never yet recovered after the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot the SME sector. Our business levels, some have reduced to even 50%. And they were forced to lay off workers simply because we couldn't carry them. A lot of the activities have been severely curtailed. So I don't know what made the minister come to this conclusion, and this is political propaganda. But businesses in this country are suffering from a lot of the after effects of the COVID-19. Yes, I mentioned the ease of doing business, and we have to be specific. But the other thing is that the government is not doing enough to create an enabling environment so that it will give the SME sector that added push. So we were holding on to our fingernails. The only news that we welcomed in the mid-year review is the payment of the VAT returns and the payment to contractors, suppliers, and service providers that have monies owed to them. They need that cash. And that's about the size of it. But yes, Kasraj, I don't agree with the minister's statement where that is concerned about business levels or economic levels have reached where the pre-COVID levels are. That is simply, I don't believe that's simply true at all. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you for that. Mr. Brown, do you have any comments on that?
Well, Minister could say what he wants is because it's not verifiable. Right? And that's one of the kind of things that you see. Look, the numbers on unemployment are what you call it. First of all, we have no numbers for 2023 or 2022. I think last number we have is either 2020 or very early 2021. So the numbers are two years behind. So I'm not clear how we came to that conclusion. The second point from that is that the labor participation rate, i.e. the number of people who, we have what's called labor force. That's the definition of people who fall within the employable age. All right, and then we have a question of those who are making themselves available for work. All right, now that labor participation rate is now down to the 50s. The average across the region is about 62, somewhere between 62 and 65%, which is pretty standard for most economies. You have a labor participation rate somewhere in the region about 65, between 65 and 78 is a really robust economy. But 55, 56, right? So if you express the number of people who are working as a percentage of the number of people who are participating, the answer is yes, it sounds high, right? But the reality is that the number is low. And that is another cause for concern. And you have to look at that and see these are short-term statistics. When we talk about GDP this year, that's short-term. The real things that you look at long-term is economic growth and is associated with population growth. Let's get that clear. Right? We could talk about all the different factors and so on that go into it. There's a virtually one-to-one relationship with the rate of change in the economy and the rate of change in population. Pretty straightforward, right? The more people you have working, by definition, the higher the percentage GDP. The problem is when you have less people working. And this is not about unemployment. This is about less people who are participating in the workforce. And the second part of that problem is we now have a long-term demographic variable. The birth rate has tanked. When you have a birth rate that is less than 1% or close to 1%, you have an unsustainable economy. That's a reality. And quite frankly, we should be thanking the Venezuelans for coming, right? And we probably might need more. Their comment, no, not many people might like that, but that's reality.
More than 70,000.
Well, I don't see them. I don't. Well, they're working in a lot of places, and quite frankly, immigrant labor works harder than people who are here uncomfortable, right? Because they have to survive. They have to survive. Naipaul says it well in A Bend in the River. There's in the sector he was talking about East Indians and Africa, and he was making the point that it was nothing more than the reality of knowing that you are alone in a country which is not your home, or it looks different to you, and you look different to everybody else. You have to build up your savings, and you have to make certain that you have an income to protect yourself. And that's what immigrants do everywhere you go. When you look at North America, as much as North America is complaining about immigration, you hear them say that they're not going to have any more immigration? Quite the opposite. They're complaining they have too much of it. They have too much illegal immigration, right? You want to look at countries which are built on immigration? Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and by the way, Germany. Right? Germany leads relative to the rest of Europe in terms of the number of immigrants that is let in. Angela Merkel, as much as she took a lot of licks, she didn't let in, everybody forget to let in refugees. Which refugees? The doctors, the attorneys, the engineers? Well, who wouldn't let those in?
Very interesting, very interesting. All right, so I'm seeing it is 9:18. I think we can take one more question, although there's several. There are enough questions for us to do a second episode just off the questions alone. So one final question, and then we'll go into closing comments. And this question is from Ramde, who again joins us every week. The question is, given our high debt to GDP ratio, what strategies should the government pursue to reduce the debt and at the same time sustain the economy? So maybe, Joy, you could give us a few comments on that. I think he might be frozen.
Frozen. All right. So let's take a little crack at that then.
Yes.
Well, there's a more of a question for Mark.
All right. It depends on what your debt, what your debt is in. If your debt is in foreign currency, you have a problem. If your debt is in local currency, that really depends upon the confidence of your domestic sector in your survival. So the best example of that is Japan. The debt to GDP ratio is 235%. Right? But it's all yen debt. Right? Meaning that the government owes the people. And people have great confidence in Japan, the land of the rising sun. We live there. So bottom line is we don't have a problem lending government the money because we know that they will pay us back. We have confidence that they will. And as long as there's confidence, you're fine. Now, in our part of the world, the people who government borrows from institutional investors. Those are the banks, the insurance companies, and pension funds. Now, the critical issue moving forward is that the government must demonstrate sustainability to maintain that level of confidence. It's as simple as that. So the debt to GDP ratio at 70%, which is where it is now, it came down, and that's using sort of more or less central government debt. If you have to include the wider definition of debt, it's probably a little higher than that. And the reason why it's down is because GDP went up. When GDP falls, the debt ratio rises. So it's low now. It's not going to be so low next year.
All right. So thank you for that, Mr. Brown. And I think we can probably take closing comments now. Time really flies when you're having fun. This was a very, very interesting program, I must say.
Speak for yourself.
Jai, over to you for closing comments.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. We need to work hard to make Trinidad and Tobago a more competitive country, but we also need to work hard to make Trinidad and Tobago a more safe country. And the matter of crime have to be dealt with expediency, with strong strategies, and we need robust leadership. That is not yet on the cards, and that is creating a lot of discomforts, a lot of uncertainty right now in the business community. We are managing uncertainty. We don't know what really is going to be taking place next. We are very discomforted by the tense relationship between the executive and the judiciary, especially the last comments made by the Minister of National Security related to the judiciary. It's the inappropriate comments has us deeply uncomfortable. But at the same time, we need to also focus on aspects relating to the non-oil sector. And yes, Mariano is right. On any experienced economists who sit here will understand that it will take 20 years, but a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, old Chinese proverb. So we need to focus on agriculture and agro-processing, hospitality and tourism in a major way, manufacturing, and I'm not speaking about the current state of manufacturing, but getting into more high-tech and AI type of manufacturing and internet-based industries. We need to look at the whole issue of shipping and shipbuilding, warehousing. Trinidad and Tobago could do these things under this new type of economic spaces. focus have to be done on production, particularly gas, oil to an extent. So what is happening with the Loran field? We need to have an understanding where that has reached. The whole issue of the Calypso gas field off Tobago, which Woodside is managing at this point in time. I understand, I saw in the New York Times today, there was an article about the Trinidad and Tobago energy sector, but there's a lot of pockets in the Calypso field and it will take multiple wells there to extract that gas. So we need to understand what is going on there. In terms of the Dragon field gas, I really not sure how that will work out because it is exceedingly complicated. And so many actors and players across there regarding the Venezuelan government, our government, the US government and the sanctions, and then the demand by the Venezuelan president, he wants cash, he doesn't want to be paid in food and medicine, how that is going to pan out. I mean, Mariano could understand these complex negotiations because when he was in Barbados, he was buying and selling banks. So he could get into the nitty-gritty of all these numbers, but it is complex. We need the energy. We need the Point Lisa's plants to be running in order for that energy sector to keep growing, and it will spin off on other sectors. But deliberate strategies with implementation timelines, milestones, and metrics need to put in place to ensure that these other sectors grow. But it must be accompanied by reform, a robust reform program and transformation program on the part of the public sector, and especially in the protective sector, because their work have to be sustainable to deal with crime, which is now a transnational problem in Trinidad and Tobago at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jai. And I want to thank you so much for coming and representing the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers. I mean, I can say we thoroughly enjoyed having you here and we enjoyed your contributions. I certainly hope you all will come more. You know, I hope to have more members of the Regional Business Chambers join us and yourself again. So
I'll make some arrangements.
Thank you. No, I'm serious. I'm very serious about that. Over to you, Mr. Brown, for closing comments.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me. Even if the notice was a little short. I had a class this evening, which is one of the reasons why I was late, because I got stuck in traffic. I decided I wasn't doing it in the office. I have responsibilities tomorrow too, and I have to do some work tonight. So these are difficult times, and they require some difficult decisions. And difficult decisions require leadership. I'm not going to put robust in front of it. I'm not going to put anything else in front of it. It needs leadership. Leadership in the perspective that a country's wealth are its people. It's not natural gas. It's not the natural gas in the ground. It's not the oil in the ground. It's about what its people can do. And when we go through periods as we have a shrinkage, the people who are skilled look for opportunities elsewhere, and you lose skill sets. We took a long time to train them. So you talk about expenses in terms of the three heavy bills that we pay every year: national security, healthcare, and education. Those are the three key bills. So we have to make certain that we get something more out of it. We have to become more efficient in terms of how we do it. More senses than one. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what's in the ground. Okay? It's about, and the world economy has changed. America isn't manufacturing. Right? So that's why the little tussle between America and China is going to be interesting. Right? America needs China. As much as they may talk about reshoring and everything else, it just doesn't have it just cannot do what China is doing at the same price that China is doing it. So if you think that inflation is hard now, if they were to try to do reshoring everything, well, inflation will go through the roof. Right. So there are lots of other issues here. And so Trinidad and Tobago, we're small. Right? We're not going to be able to do it like Uruguay. So the things that we do, we have to be careful in terms of how we do them, and we have to do them well. That's the point. Right? We have to do them well. Right? So unfortunately, typically governments talk about how much money they spend. They don't talk about how much we get for it. And that's the change that is required. It's really about some basics. We really have to get down to basics, the basics of management and getting it right. And we've been actually a little loosey-goosey because we've grown up thinking that we have our backdrop is energy and it will save us. Well, we're not on that road anymore. All right, so we have to start doing the things that we didn't do before. And if Barbados, for example, which is 365 miles, 270,000 people, all right, an aging population just like ours, but their GDP, even notwithstanding the difficulties they ran into in terms of IMF funding and bailouts and everything else and so on, their GDP is not that far behind ours, you know. All right. So there have to be things that we have to pay attention to that we're not paying attention to. And I think that's it. We have to pay attention. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Brown, I want to say whenever you come to this program, we learn so much, right? And I love one of your last statements in your closing remarks that a country's wealth is its people. I absolutely agree with that, right? Before I turn you over to Shanta to close off, I just want to mention some of the things that we discussed. Mr. Brown used the term muted optimism with respect to the recovery of the economy. And I think that is very appropriate. I mean, both gentlemen doubted the minister's statement that the economy was back to pre-COVID level. And I think that pretty much is a statement that has been expressed by the general public. In my mind, I'm already seeing topics that we can have other episodes on. Why is it so difficult to diversify the economy? I think that could be a whole show. What can we do to increase the ease of doing business? Challenges with renewables, things that concern us like election spending and the impact that will have on the economy. Of course, devastating crime. We've had a couple episodes where we spoke about crime and the impact of crime on the economy. So these are all items that came up, and I think we kind of have enough so that we can pave the way for having some more critical discussions on these issues. So I want to thank you both again. I thoroughly enjoyed the session. I learned a lot. I saw at one point we had a little over 300 people, and when I just checked, there were still about 200 people live with us on social media. So I guess people found some value to stay on this long. Shanti, over to you to close off.
Thank you, Alicia. Tonight's episode was indeed a conversation that was much needed. To Mr. Leela Darsing, thank you for being here tonight, and continue your drive. Wonderful discussion. Continue your drive and your passion with your group. We do hope that you make strides, especially with what was discussed here tonight. Mr. Brown, no stranger to us. You have been here before. I must say, excellent contribution and analysis. We really appreciate your knowledge, your wealth of knowledge, and how outspoken you are. And I mean, one thing I personally admire about you tonight is that you are not uncomfortable to say it as it is, to call a spade a spade. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here tonight and having such a productive conversation with us. To our audience,
you're welcome.
To our audience, both on Zoom and Facebook, social media, we thank you all for your continued support. And we do hope to see you next week, same time, same place, for another critical conversation. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.